Okay, hello. My name is Nicole Canzaneri, and welcome to the 9th Annual Accessibility Awareness Days event. I'm the moderator for this event, so thank you so much for joining. I'm a second-year disability studies student and a member of the Accessible Built Environment Committee. Currently, I'm wearing a blue University of Windsor sweater. I have a pink background, dark hair with a headband on, and I'm a white woman. This is the third of 5 short workshops for the theme Making UWindsor Accessible. Each week, the presenters will share a 20-minute presentation, leaving time for a short question and answer period. Please, if you have any questions, type them in the Q&A box during the presentation, and we'll address them towards the end. Additionally, speakers may type in answers during the session. You will see in your menu bar 2 speech bubbles, and you can click on that for the Q&A dialog box. If you require closed captioning, look for the 3 dots in the menu bar and scroll to the bottom of the drop-down menu and select Turn on Live Captions. This week's panel discussion is Accessible Places and Spaces. The presenters we have this week, we have Maria Lederer. She is a University of Windsor alumni from the Visual Arts and Built Environment program, also known as VABE. She's a former OREA summer student and part of a team that placed second in the 2021 IDEA competition. We have Mignola Bali. She is also a University of Windsor alumni and also from VABE. She's a former OREA summer student who partnered with Maria on a universal design project. Next, we have Dr. Veronica Mojarodi, who is a professor emeritus in CTL and founder of the VABE program in partnership with the School of Architecture, University of Detroit Mercy, and a member of the Accessible Built Environment Committee. Next, we have Karen Pilon, who is an associate university librarian from Leddy Library and a member of the Accessibility Coordinating Committee. And finally, we have Sherry Gagno, who is the Accessibility Manager in the Office of Human Rights, Equity, and Accessibility. I will now turn the presentation over to Maria and Mignola to start the panel off.
Hello, I'm Mignola Valley. I'm a recent graduate of UWindsor alumni. I have brown hair that is tied up right now. I'm wearing a white shirt and I have a light complexion, and currently I'm sitting at my desk with a white backdrop.
And hello, my name is Maria Lederer. I am a recent UWindsor alumni. I have straight blonde hair and I have a light complexion, and I'm sitting at my desk behind a white wall backdrop.
So today we're presenting a few of many of our posters that we created over the summer for our OREA student research internship. And the topic presentation will be going through myths and accessible standards of universal design.
Yeah, so to begin, universal design is intended to create environments that can be accessed by everyone, regardless of age, stature, ability, or disability. And to emphasize that accessibility and universal design benefits absolutely everyone, and it promotes accessibility within the built environment, and what we're focused on here today within this presentation.
Starting off with myth number 1, so it is universal design is only for people using wheelchairs. And what we placed is universal design creates a barrier-free environment that is accessible for all, and we encounter universal design features on a daily basis, such as stairs, handrails, that is safer for everyone, automatic doors, spacing in offices, anything with slopes, and so on. Next slide.
And then our second myth that we've debunked is that if you do not have a disability, universal design does not benefit you. Universal design is intended for absolutely everyone, and it makes a space enjoyable and accessible for everyone across the continuum of life, whether you're injured, disabled, an older adult, or consider yourself an able-bodied person. So it offers a good quality of life for absolutely everyone within the population.
Moving on to myth number 3, so accessibility is guaranteed by building codes. Building codes alone do not necessarily guarantee that the built environment is fully accessible, and by applying principles of universal design, environments may exceed codes by considering the broad range of barriers that people may encounter on a daily basis. And so this result is creating a comfortable, positive, and safe experience for the diverse population, and especially by starting universal design at the beginning of the project, it makes it easier and run everything smoothly throughout.
Our fourth myth is that universal design is too expensive. So often when you're making a layout, selecting materials and hardware. People often find that this can be often pricey if it's selected towards the end of the design phase. But if anything that can be considered in the preliminary design phase can be reworked with a budget, which is proving that this is not the case. Universal design can be affordable.
Myth number 5. So universal design is uncreative, ugly, and boring. The limits of universal design actually spans as a wide for the designer that will allow it. So with proper education, research, and community involvement, any project can be broadly accessible while still sustaining aesthetic and functional design. And so this debunks it because universal design is based on just not ugly and boring. Just because you're following measurements and specific guidelines, you can make it as elaborative and creative as the designer wants to, for sure.
And then our last myth, myth 6, universal design in learning borrows principles from universal design and applies to the learning environment. So universal design is an educational framework that strives to avoid barriers in education and not hinder it. So whether some students may require specific accommodations, universal design approaches are intended to help create instructional content and accessible strategies to a broad base of students. And no matter what walk of life you come from, universal design can serve everyone.
And over here is an office floor plan, so which displays the accessible measurements in an office space and how many programs with universal design can be integrated into any existing space, not only office. And it just allows this accessibility for all workers and not only those with accessible needs. And with this, we just wanted to showcase some basic measurements and standards that are used within any type of floor plan. So you can see at the bottom here that the rule of thumb for having an accessible wheelchair rotation radius is about 5 feet 7 inches. And so just incorporating, making sure everything is spaced out within that.
And one last thing to add, that if universal design, just as a reminder, if this starts at the initial preliminary design phase, anything can be achieved, proving that universal design myths are debunked and that anything is possible if considered early enough and beforehand.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks very much. Everybody can hear me okay? Great. Okay. So good morning. I'm so pleased to be here this morning. My name is Veronica Majrodi, and I'm sitting at the desk in my living room speaking to you. I'm a retiree, so I'm a wee bit older than my colleagues today on the panel. I identify as a woman. I have a light complexion and short white hair. There are 3 images on the left-hand side of this slide. I put them in here because during the pandemic, these are the many manifestations that I have right now. And so I use the emojis as well as the avatar, and who knows what you'll see when I'm speaking. In this slide, I'll just give you a little bit of background of myself. Besides being affiliated with the VABE program, and I'm quite proud of my VABers, as I call them affectionately, I'm trained as an architect and as an urban planner. And my professional practice and research have focused on higher education learning spaces, sustainable architectural practices, and accessibility and universal design. And as the former academic architectural advisor for the university, I was involved in many of the campus learning environments. I'm pleased that like Karen, I'm a member of the ABEC committee, and I'm currently a member on the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, which is known as the CNIB. Just a brief, this particular slide gives you what I'm going to cover this morning. I've already gone through the introduction, but we're going to talk a little bit about the role of what ABEC does and what it does in the community, how the membership is structured, so we demystify it a little bit just in case you want to be on it, how it reports, and the kind of spaces that we look at and some of the things that we've done in the last while. Okay, can we have the next slide? This is slide number 2. There are 2 images, one on the left and one on the right. The left images is a series of icons that represent wheelchair accessibility, braille, hearing, and also people requiring a cane or who may be visually impaired. So the first question I'm going to answer is the role of ABEC. Again, and ABEC stands for the Accessible Built Environment Committee. Our role is basically to create an academic environment that is barrier-free, that's accessible and inclusive for everyone. And as Maria and Manjola both indicated quite articulately, universal design is very, very important, and it respects the rights and dignity of all individuals, not just a select few. And so that's an important thing to recognize. It's universal. We don't categorize people into particular groups. And the other thing that the role that we play is that we give opportunities to students, staff, and faculty, and the entire community when they come onto our campus, so that we look at a population rather than just a small population, but a much larger population. The second image on the right-hand side is a megaphone. And again, representing the fact that we're very proactive. We take great deal of pride of being proactive in terms of what we do. So what basically does the ABEC do? Well, we keep up to date on the Accessibility for Ontarians and Disabilities Act, which is again affectionately known as AODA, and on the legislative standards. We regularly identify where there are barriers for persons with disability on campus. We maintain a matrix that lists the barriers that have been identified on campus, and we prioritize the items on a list for remedial action. And we refer to this list as the Accessibility Upgrades Priority Chart, and it's updated on a regular basis. ABEC is proactive. We make recommendations to the university, and then we follow up on what actions have been taken. We try to assist the accessibility manager in securing financial support through grants and provincial federal funding. We act as a resource for the university, and we advocate for various user groups on the campus. Okay, next slide. In this particular slide, we have some images on the left side, all of us wearing hard hats, which is a symbol of going on to the site. And we have 2 images on the upper right-hand corner, a hard hat and also a measuring tape as well. On this particular side, what I want to do is we're going to talk a bit about the membership on ABEC. The manager of facilities, planning, renovations, and construction acts as the chair and represents facility services. And currently that individual is Dan Castellan. The accessibility manager, who's the vice chair, is Sherry Gagnon, who's on this panel. We have representatives from health and safety. Lisa Karitzis is currently on. We have representatives from the Student Accessibility Services. We have Christine Qualia and David Sutherland. And we have student representatives. One of them are the person that's chairing our panel today, Nicole Kenzo-Neri and Zainab Hussein are 2. And then we also have representatives from the community. Right now we have Vicky J. Leung, who's from the Law Library, who's a reference library, and myself. Now, what happens is the vice chair of APEC reports annually to the Accessibility Coordinating Committee. And what this means is she provides a list of achievements and intended goals that ABEC has, and she submits annual accessibility reports and a multi-year plan. How successful have you been and where we're going to be? Okay, slide number 4. I'll just very quickly, this image on this slide has a whole series of images of places in and around campus, from interior spaces and exterior spaces and different kinds of components. But generally what we do is we look at 4 categories on the campus space, the ABEC. Obviously, the first one is teaching and learning facilities, and that range from classrooms, meeting assembly areas, auditoriums, laboratories, offices, and library, anything that relates to learning. The second one is the common areas, all those things, and not just the students, staff, and faculty use, but the larger community. And that can range from the student center to performance halls to fitness areas, the parking area, picnic areas. This is not completely inclusive, but it gives you an idea, very, very broad ranging. The third is student support facilities, and a good example of that would be dormitories and student housing. And then the last one is auxiliary facilities. These are the things that maybe the public doesn't necessarily see, kind of the invisible spaces, but the campus security piece, police, the maintenance, facility shops, all those kinds of things. Okay, and then the last slide. In this particular slide, we have a target with a bullseye and some arrows leading towards the center. And this is what we hope to do, is that every year we have a list of things that we try to make sure that we complete. And so we have ongoing upgrades that we do annually, and they range, and I'm not going to read everything that you've got here, but just to give you a slight idea, you know, drop-off areas and pickup locations that you have on campus, where we need to have curb cuts, where we need ramps, both inside and on the out exterior of the building. We just recently completed some stair stripping and tactile surfaces down ramps as well. Automated doors, actuated at doors. And again, as I said, this list is quite exhaustive. You're quite familiar with universal washrooms. Anyway, how can you get a hold of us? Well, the best way to get a hold of us is go to the Office of Human Rights, Equity, and Accessibility, affectionately known as OREA. They're located in 325 Chrysler Hall Tower. There's an extension number 3400 and also an email number there too. And we'd be more, anytime you see anything that you think needs attention or should be drawn to our attention, please let us know. Thanks. Okay, that's it.
I'm going to share my screen now. Yay. Hopefully everybody can see that. Great. So my name is Karen Pilon. I am a female and I have lighter skin. I am in a bedroom today and I have a shelving unit to my left, or to my right, and I have long brown hair and it's covering up a bit. You can see a bit of my flowered shirt. So today we're going to talk about Leddy Library as one of the places that actually has had the benefit of working with the myths that have been talked about, as well as ABEC. And so just to start, you know, when you come into Leddy, you can see the stair stripping, we have ramps. Inside, we have also the stripping that you can see on the stairs. And one of those pictures is actually, there's also a ramp for a wheelchair or a stroller. And we're really trying to think about universal design. What's difficult at the library is that it was built in the 1970s. And so, you know, we have one building built in the 1970s and it's connected to a building that was built in the 1950s. And so it's very interesting how we try to connect universal design in spaces that were at first that was not a priority, but you will see one where we started it from the beginning. So we do have universal washrooms as well in the main and the lower level of the west building. And so that was a recent addition to our library. We have also worked on making sure we have accessible single desks, as well as an accessible room where students can use dragon speech and all other, speech to text, as well as listen to lectures. So we have a room for that, as well as a laptop that can be borrowed that has those programs on it, which is a partnership with our student accessibility services. We also make sure that to get into those spaces, we have accessible doors. And in our west building, we have large areas with large tables so that anyone can use that space as well. We like to talk a lot when we talk about universal design, actually. In one of our projects that happened pretty recently, I think it was in 2018, actually. And so that's called the Collaboratory. And one of the things that was interesting with the Collaboratory is that it was one of those areas where we made intentional accessibility choices. So for example, you'll see a whiteboard right here. And this whiteboard was intentionally designed to go from the bottom right to the top so that anyone, depending on their size, can use it. We also put a railing because the area is rounded, so you can follow the railing. We made sure that on the floor, these were all, suggestions from the ABEC committee to create different floor colors so that people who had low vision, when they would come in, could see that this was where something was going to change. So coming into the space, or this is the teaching space with the wooden floor over here. We also made sure that lighting could be fixed in terms of making it darker or lighter depending on light sensitivity. You can see that right here. And also we made sure that when the rooms, this was before COVID, of course, when the room would be cleaned at the end of the day, it followed the exact same pattern as the ways that the room should be put together. So we worked with facilities to make sure that the cleaning staff would put the room back exactly as it should be. And the reason is because a lot of the things in the room are movable. So for example, we have a desk. The first picture on the left shows a desk that can go up and down, a chair that can go up and down. The couches that are in the middle can be moved around to make sure people who are in wheelchairs can join into the conversation as well. We made sure that there are no arms. So for people who are larger or smaller, or people who have a laptop with them, or who need extra space, right? And again, all of this furniture is movable. We also have desks which are tall, so people can sit and look out the window, but shorter tables as well. And so trying to really incorporate that universal design. And I really appreciate when we talk about, universal design myths, like it's ugly and boring. And I don't find this space ugly and boring at all. Actually, I find it quite exciting. And all the students want to study here, and all kinds of students. So really thinking about that universal design. In the library, we also have accessible technology available on the first floor, such as magnifiers for the screen. And you can see that, we've made sure to lower the tables as well. And we also have the learning annex. I've just taken a picture of it from the outside, just so that students would know where it is. And again, this is our good partners over at SAS that work with us, where students with accessibility needs can enter that space. And just to show you that it is on the lower level of Leddy Library. And so thank you so much. I mean, we just wanted to give you a little tour of some of the things we have at Leddy. If you have more questions, these slides will be available for you, and this presentation is recorded, so you'll be able to access others who help us in the library to make accessibility possible. Thank you so much.
Okay. Is there an echo?
Oh, there is. Not for me.
Okay, we'll try that again. Is that better? Okay, excellent. Okay, I'm Sherry Gagno, and I'm sitting in my office at the University of Windsor. There are windows behind me, and I have long brown hair, a light complexion, and I am wearing an animal print turtleneck. So I'm just going to talk very briefly about accessible navigation and wayfinding apps that we have here available at the university. The first one is Key to Access, and we've had this one for a few years now, and it provides outdoor navigation. This app, you can download it to your phone, and when you point it to certain locations on campus or buildings, it will provide information about that location or building. It will also provide information about accessible amenities such as washrooms and entrances, and it provides directional information as well. The neat thing about Key to Access is that they have this technology that we're using on campus where we can insert specific modules into specific doors, and you can open the doors from your phone. So not only is this helpful to make the campus more accessible, but it also reduces touching and contact with surfaces, which is really important right now for a lot of us. So it also has voice over technology, and this app is actually endorsed by the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. So it provides equity of access to information. It tries to provide the same type of information that a sighted person would have. And while it was designed for accessibility in mind, anyone can use this app and anyone can benefit from the functionality of this app as well. The second app that I wanted to talk about is a wayfinding app. And again, it can be used on your mobile devices. It's also available in your desktop browser. And it gives a wayfinding information. It runs a lot like Google Maps. So it has outdoor navigation, and we are adding indoor navigation inside of buildings on campus. Right now, the CAW Center is mapped out, and we are working on adding other buildings to the wayfinding app. This app was introduced in the fall of 2021, so you're welcome to download that at any time. It will also give information not only about how to get around campus indoors and outdoors, as well as the downtown campus, but let you know things about where visitor parking is or the location of campus emergency call centers or stations. And then from an accessibility perspective, you can select an accessible route. So you can pick, the shortest route or an accessible route that will lead you to ramps and accessible entrances. And then so that people don't have to switch between apps, we are working with the makers of the Campus Go app, with those who made the Key to Access app, so that we can embed the same technology so that you can open doors with this, with Campus Go as well as Key to Access. It will let you know where accessible parking is, and in terms of functionality, you can adjust the color contrast to what works best for your vision. It has speech to text and text to speech, as well as tab navigation. So in the information that we'll be sending out to all attendees after the event, we'll have links to let you know where you can get this, where you can get these apps and how you can download and start using them. So that is all of it for me at this time. And Nicole, I'll turn it back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, all our presenters. Thank you. We have a few minutes left. There's no questions in the Q&A chat currently, so feel free to put some in there if you have any. But I'll start off with a question I have. We talked a lot today about how we are improving certain accessibility features around the campus. So if I wanted to make a suggestion, say somewhere needs a ramp, or this is really tricky to open the door or the counter, who would I make that suggestion to, and how would I contact them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Nicole. Again, you would just contact AREA at ohrea@uwindsor.ca, send in an email, and then somebody will be in touch with you. And we take the feedback that we get back to the ABEC committee, and that's part of our discussions.
Wonderful. Thank you. And one more question I have is, we talked a little bit about some of the accessible committees, as you mentioned ABEC, and I know Veronica shared some stuff, but if I wanted to join a committee, I know there's a lot, how would I go about that again?
Again, just contact our office. And then if you also go on AREA's website, we have on the left-hand side committees in our menu. And you can take a look at the various committees that we have. We have employment equity committees as well as accessible built environment committees. And you can see what area interests you the most and then have a conversation with us, and hopefully you can contribute to one of our committees.
Wonderful. And we have one question building off that in the chat. Who would pay for such improvements? So I believe that's referencing the things like we might suggest on campus if we see an accessibility issue?
Well, annually, Facility Services sets a certain amount of funding aside so that we can work on mid-sized to smaller projects. We also work to secure grants. And then there may be groups who have funding that is earmarked for accessible upgrades, and we might work with that group in identifying some deficiencies in the building and what might be considered priority areas in terms of improvement.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Could I, Nicole, and just to add on to Sherry, anybody that's engaged in a project, before you take the project too far, please make sure you talk to Sherry and her office, because it's better to do the work up front than after the fact, okay?
Thank you so much. And on that note, it looks like it is 12 now. So thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you our presenters. Next week, we have 2 guest speakers, David Robinson and Dane Macri, speaking about disability and intersectionality. We're going to learn about personal experiences and how to be a better ally. This event is also co-sponsored by the Office of Equity, Diversity, Inclusion. So we'll send out a reminder, but please don't forget to register. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right.